It's episode 669 of the Locked On Rangers podcast. On today's show, I'm breaking down a absolutely heartbreaking, frustrating, hair-tearing loss in Boston. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is Friday, September 2nd. Your Rangers are 58 and 62, just 2 wins away from matching last year's season win total. You know what? Maybe they'll even get there this month. Who knows? But thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day, even after a just heart-wrenching loss like last night. And if you're not already, you can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment any single thing below. Comment what your favorite of the 4 runs that were given up was, what your least favorite of those 4 runs given up in the 9th inning were, because the Rangers had a 5-run lead heading into the bottom of the 8th inning, and they lost in a 1-run game. Their commitment to the bit of losing 1-run games is, honestly, it's getting a bit old at this point, okay? We've seen it. It was funny the first time. It was a little sad the second time. It was upsetting the third time. But, 28 1-run losses is enough. It's enough for 1 season. It's enough for 2 seasons, actually. It's been horrendous in these 1-run games. In a game that was not close, the Rangers were blowing out this Red Sox team. Even their best bullpen options could not get it done. The Rangers give up 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning and 4 runs from their closer, Jonathan Hernandez, in the bottom of the 9th inning, in just the worst outing of his major league career. He only got 1 out, that was via the strikeout, but he walked 3. One of those was intentional, but he allowed 4 hits, 4 runs. Every single one of those bad boys was earned, because it was bad. It was all very bad. And I mean, the thing that frustrates me the most is that this was a really, really solid performance from Glenn Otto. I was so ready to talk about how great a day Glenn Otto had. He had 5 innings. He set a new major league career high with 8 strikeouts, only walked 1, did allow 4 hits and 3 runs, all of which were earned. One of those came off of a pretty big solo shot from Alex Verdugo, his 8th of the season, which was reviewed but ended up being a home run. But the Rangers offense was clicking on all cylinders. Top of the lineup was absolutely fantastic. This one, even all the way down to Adolis Garcia, who had a 2-run bomb, had a 3 RBI day, scored a pair of runs as well. Marcus Semien reached base 4 times, 3 hits for him, all singles. A pair of hits for Corey Seager, a pair of RBIs. Nathaniel Lowe had another reaching base 4 times in a game, which is the second time in the last 3 games that he's done that. He is just on another level at this point, just absolutely crushing it on all cylinders, even against lefties. With Rich Hill on the mound, he absolutely dominated him, and the Rangers were able to get to him early. They weren't able to get to him as much as they probably could have and should have very early on in the 3rd inning. They should have probably gotten to him just a little bit more, but they really got to him in that 5th inning, and he was not able to get an out in the 5th inning. He ended up giving up 4 runs, all of which were earned, striking out just 2, walking 4, and allowing 5 hits in just 4 innings of work. He's been one of their more consistent starters, and at the age of 87, actually I believe he's 42. Okay, not quite 43 just yet. Only 42. A spry 42. But he's been fairly consistent for them. And the Rangers were able to get to the Red Sox bullpen as well. Against Kelly, they were able to get a pair of runs off of him. Against Bizardo, they were able to get a pair of runs off of him as well and extend this lead just a little bit. Give some breathing room to Glenn Otto, who was just fantastic. He was not getting a whole lot of swings and misses, but almost every single one of them was coming at a key time. He was very, very effective in this game, and the Rangers bullpen was just not. They just weren't. Except for Jesus Tinoco. I got to give a shout out to Jesus Tinoco, who was called up when the roster is expanded, and he pitched 2 innings of shutout work and was very, very effective in that one. He has a 3.52 ERA in his major league performances this year, and Matt Moore got shellacked. Only got 1 out, which was not was not retired via the strikeout, allowed 3 hits and a walk, and he was just getting lit up in this one. He allowed those 2 runs, made it a lot closer, and those were the 2 runs that were given up in the 8th inning. He wasn't able to get out of that 8th inning. Jose Leclerc came in, got a couple of outs via the strikeout, did allow a walk, but did not allow any runs to score because he was in there and doing his job. After pitching 2 innings a couple of days before that on Tuesday, was able to come in and get 2 outs there and was very, very effective in that outing. Matt Moore, not so much. Jonathan Hernandez, very much not so much. Just absolutely lit up in the closer's role, and he's been fairly consistent as the Rangers closer. This one outing will definitely spike and skew his numbers, but he's been good for the most part. He hasn't had that many blow up games. This is just one of those games that you kind of scratch your head, you throw your hat in the air, and you scream into your pillow at night because it is so dang frustrating and upsetting. Right now, in 16 and a third innings, he has a 3.86 ERA, which I believe is right around 3-ish. This one outing made it go up that much. In terms of earned runs on the season, he had only allowed 3 earned runs on the entire season. Now he's allowed 7. He more than doubled his amount of earned runs in this one outing, which, even the best relievers in baseball will have these bad outings, but to have it in a magnitude like this and having Matt Moore also have a total crap outing, and the Rangers were coming in on a 4-game losing streak. Like, that is, all of that was just really frustrating when it felt like the Rangers had this game in hand offensively. It wasn't just the top of the lineup that was able to get it done. Pretty much everyone was getting it done in some capacity. Even Cole Calhoun came in to pinch hit for Charlie Culberson and got a sac fly, a multi-hit game for Bubba Thompson, who also reached on a walk. He's just absolutely electric on the base paths. Had a fantastic play where he was stealing second, and Marcus Semien put the ball in play, and he slid into second base, got up. It was a ball to left field, too. Not super deeply hit, but it was a single into left field, and Bubba Thompson slid into second base, got up and saw the ball was in play, ran all the way to third base and slid in there, and was just so fast that there wasn't even a throw in at third base. That is game-breaking, game-changing speed. I know that he isn't always showing the most power, and he still does have a significant amount of swing and miss, but he's walking at a much higher rate than I thought he would at the big league level. He's able to, use his speed to absolutely maximize it on the base pass and just making himself a menace, a very, very valuable player at the end of the bench. I really do think he might be faster than Eli White, and I can't believe I didn't see him utilizing this, or didn't. Maybe I just wasn't watching closely enough of how fast he was when he was at Double A, because this guy has got some otherworldly speed. Coming up, we're going to look a little bit more at this game, positive notes, what else we should take away from it, and why some of the things did not go the Rangers' way. Also, some look at bullpen options, because this was a very, very frustrating bullpen day, making Rangers fans clamor for a change, and maybe even myself. But first, are you one of those people who thinks it's okay to drive stoned? What's the worst that can happen? You end up driving below the speed limit? It's no big deal, right? Wrong. The truth is, your reaction times slow way down when you're high. You not only put yourself in danger, but everyone around you. Talk about a buzzkill. Stop kidding yourself. It is not okay to drive high. If you've been using marijuana in any form, do not get behind the wheel. If you feel different, you drive different. Drive high, get a DUI. Now, the thing with Jonathan Hernandez in this game is he was still throwing pretty much his regular velocity, but I do want to look at some of the positive notes first before we get into that. Glenn Otto, very, very effective pitch mix for him tonight. He used 4 pitches, the sinker, the four-seamer, the knuckle curve, and the slider, all of them around the same percentage. He threw, 30 different sinkers, 17 four-seamers, 20 sliders, and 21 knuckle curves, each of those between 19 and 34% of his pitches, so not going, too much overboard, but he got exactly 3 whiffs on every single one of those pitches. 12 whiffs for him tonight and 8 strikeouts. So that means only 4 of his swinging strikes came in non 2-strike count. So very, very effective night for him. He was able to throw his fastball just a little bit faster, 0.6 miles an hour faster. The slider was 1.6 miles an hour faster than average, and the knuckle curve was a mile an hour faster than average. pretty effective for him. Was not able to opposing batters were not able to put very hard hit balls in play against him in this one. He did have a couple that were pretty darn hard hit. One against his four-seamer, one against his sinker. The sinker was 105.2 miles an hour off the bat. That was the home run. That'll happen. He'll give up a couple home runs, but he is a fifth, sixth starter doing his job, and he absolutely did his job keeping the Rangers in this one tonight. Jesus Sunoco was also very effective, but with Matt Moore, his stuff was just not quite there. The fastball velocity, the changeup velocity, both of those were down from his average. The spin rate on those was not great on the knuckle curve. It looked like his old spin rate. It was down 58 RPM from normal. The fastball spin rate was down. The vertical break was down 7 inches from his yearly average this year. That is the knuckle curve that was getting absolutely taken behind the woodshed the last couple of years and was just not able to get it done. With Jonathan Hernandez, everything was pretty much the same. It was just one of those nights where things just didn't quite go his way. The vertical break was a little bit different, a little bit worse on all 3 of his pitches, not by that much. The spin rate was up on all of those pitches. The slider spin rate was up from his yearly average. Same with the changeup and the sinker. Now those last pitches, that's not as great because you don't want a whole lot of rotation on those pitches, but again, it wasn't all that different. And the horizontal break was not quite as good on any of those pitches, except for the changeup, a little bit better than his yearly average. But still, nothing too crazy. He was still throwing his usual gas. I mean, averaging 99.1 miles an hour with that sinker. 97, or let's see, 98.7. Sorry. Max velocity was 99.7, so nearly triple digits. That's just where he is. And the slider was averaging 88 miles an hour. Like, it was all the usual numbers. The velocity wasn't that much down. But honestly, I would have probably pulled him after those 2 walks, but there weren't a whole lot of other options in the bullpen. I don't really know why the Rangers didn't make another change in their call-ups. I don't know why they brought up Nick Solak, who's probably not going to play a lot. There are already a lot of guys who play multiple positions that he plays that are playing them just much better than he does at this point. So I don't really understand what the point of a call-up there is. Maybe just an extra body on the roster. I really can't see much of the value behind it. It's just kind of a placeholder move for when they are waiting for Josh Young to be called up, which is, like I said on yesterday's episode, probably going to be next Friday. Frustratingly, they want to see him get those reps at third base, make sure that the arm and shoulder are fully healthy, that he is in the rhythm and swing of things, playing pretty much every day at AAA, so that once he is called up, he is ready to give it every single day at third base, which I'm pretty sure is what is going to be happening once they do call him up, if they do call him up. Because if they don't call him up next Friday, I really don't know what the heck they're doing. But let's look at some of the minor league options that the Rangers might have down on the farm to call up and take a look at in terms of guys that are going to be in the bullpen. Kyle Cody is pitching again. He is probably not going to be a starter. That ship seems to have flown. He has started 2 games this year, but he has not gone deep into them. It's more of a opener kind of a role. 4 games for him this year in AAA. Round Rock, a 2.08 ERA in 8 2/3 innings. Does have a home run that he's given up, has walked 2, but has also struck out 11. That is pretty impressive numbers for a guy who is so tall, just so ridiculously tall at 6'5", or 6'7", excuse me, not 6'5", 6'7". The Rangers should definitely think about giving him a call because he has been pretty darn good. Again, like Josh Young, not quite to the same extent because he's not dominating, putting those up the insane numbers that Josh Young is, but they might want to be very, very sure that he's healthy. He's had a lot of injury issues in the past, but I think that he could be a name that they look at. Another guy that they should look at with some nasty velocity is old Nick Snyder. In 8 appearances in the month of August, he did not allow a single run. That was 10 innings, 13 strikeouts, and just 2 walks. He has had a bit of a problem with the walk and the home run ball this year. A little bit of a shaky July, a real shaky month of June. Did not pitch a whole lot there, but was really roughed up there. But looked really solid in the month of May. Has had on and off and on and off months. Right now, he is looking like he has figured something out. He has not allowed a single run in his last 9 appearances. That streak dates back to the last appearance in July. And another guy who I think the Rangers might take a look at is a guy by the name of Chase Lee, who is also known as the Viper, who has been also very, very effective for that Round Rock team, especially as of late. He had a really, really rough start to his AAA tenure. Things just were not really going his way, but as of late, he has been fantastic. He has been going multiple innings. He has been very effective in those outings. Just had an outing last night. Did not allow a single run in 1 inning of work. In 9 outings in the month of August, had a 1.64 ERA in 11 innings, 17 strikeouts, and just 1 walk. That is very, very effective for him. He doesn't have any of that nasty, nasty triple-digit stuff that Nick Snyder does, but he is a very, very effective reliever. We saw how much he dominated in Double-A this year. It took him a little bit longer to get to Triple-A than I thought. Then got roughed up in Triple-A, figured it out, learned, got a little bit better, and he is on a roll as of late. I think he will definitely be considered. He also had a pretty decent month of July, a 3.38 ERA, which was, not perfect, but still much, much better than when he first started in AAA. That was in 8 appearances, 8 innings, 8 strikeouts in that month of July. So it's not just this 1 month. It's not just that 1 month plus 1 outing in September. It has been multiple months. He is looking a lot better. The Rangers have a lot more access to the data than I do, and they will definitely make a lot more informed decisions when they decide to call him up or not. But the last guy I want to look at is Yerry Rodriguez. He has been called up. He was there for, I believe, a day, maybe 2 days, but the Rangers did not throw him when he was up at the major league level, and immediately when he got sent down, he had a outing where he lasted just 2/3 of an inning and allowed 3 hits, a homer, and 3 runs total. But did get a strikeout, but yeah, has been not as great in the month of August or July as he was in June when he won the Rangers minor league reliever of the month. Very, very effective in that month of June, a 1.54 ERA and 20 strikeouts in 11 2/3 innings. That was very, very encouraging. But another guy who I think is not going to be called up to the big leagues anytime soon, might end up being a reliever eventually. Just had another really, really weird outing. Really, really weird slash line. That is, of course, Emiliano Tayoto, the guy who sits 98 to 101 miles an hour, has a curveball that sits 88 to 91 miles an hour. That's right, a curveball that sits very often in the 90s, where he can control it to throw it for strikes. He has a better feel for his curveball than he does for his fastball. He also has a changeup that is a pitch, but last night against Fayetteville, he started the game, went 3 2/3 innings, allowed 2 hits. One of those was a home run, allowed 4 walks, 2 runs, and 5 strikeouts. The guy is just putting up absolutely ridiculously weird numbers. He's still, I don't know if they might just put him back in low A next year to start the season, because even though his overall numbers are very effective, he had 4 starts in the month of August where he had a 1.53 ERA, and overall for the season, his ERA is 3.05 in 21 games, 16 of which are starts, 109 strikeouts in 1 out shy of 80 innings. So the guy's putting up super weird numbers. Low A hitters don't know what to do with him. I think high A hitters might get into him a little bit because he is so heavily reliant on low A guys not wanting to swing at his curveball and not being able to locate his fastball. I think that might be a little bit more of a problem for him at the high A level, but another weird outing that is definitely worth keeping some tabs on. The kid's 21 years old, was a late signing for, I believe, $10,000. Definitely a developmental win seeing what he is doing so far. Coming up, we're going to look at some external options, some big free agent relievers, and why that's not the right move for the Rangers. First, this word from our sponsors. So, in the comments, by the way, if you want someone to blame for the loss, a regular commenter, regular fan of the show, Samuel Patton, I'm believing that he used some kind of dark magic, because literally in yesterday's episode, when I was ranking the Rangers' offseason needs, I did not put bullpen arms up there in terms of guys they need to go after in free agency. And Sam put that, I believe, number 2 on his list, is they need a lot of bullpen arms. And I'm like, no. I'm pretty sure he used some dark magic to prove his point. So I'm not saying that I can prove it. I'm saying I've got a hunch. But there are quite a few expensive bullpen options out there on the market if you're wanting to look at some free agents. You look at the top of the list, the highest paid guy going into free agency, it's going to be Aroldis Chapman. You have Kenley Jansen, you have Craig Kimbrel, you even have Zack Britton and Edwin Diaz, who has been an absolute revelation. But those guys are going to be expensive. Aroldis Chapman made $18 million this year. Kenley Jansen made $16, and so did Craig Kimbrell. Zack Britton made $14 million, and Edwin Diaz, who has been lighting the world on fire and has one of the coolest closer walk-up songs that we have seen since Mariano Rivera, and got a live edition of it again in the series against the Dodgers, which was absolute must-watch baseball. He made $10 million this year, and he is going to make a whole lot more. And I think there's absolutely no way that the Mets let him go because, their owner's whole thing is, I have a lot of money and I'm going to spend it, and it's going to be great. And you know what? That's what he did this offseason. That's what he did with Francisco Lindor. And I have no reason to think that it would stop because he is by far the richest owner in baseball, and he has shown that he is 110% ready to throw out that money. But say the Rangers want to go after Aroldis Chapman. He is 34 years old. He'll be 35 next season. He has been fairly consistent in his career. He's got 482 games finished, 315 career saves. Now, the only person who has more than him at this point who is in the big leagues, I think, let's see. That's 393 saves for Craig Kimbrell. Also, if you want to throw Kenley Jansen in the mix, which I do, 381 saves for him. Now, let's look at what Aroldis Chapman has done this year. He's been bad. Yankees fans have been straight up terrified when he comes into games. He has been completely erratic. He has not been in the strike zone. 22 walks in 30 and 2/3 innings. That is 6.5 walks per nine. Also 1.2 homers per nine, which is, right around where he's been the last couple years with New York. He has an ERA over 3 in each of the last seasons. This year, it's at 4.70 in 36 outings. By the way, he's gone 36 games and only 30.2 innings. Now, normally when you have a lefty reliever that's very, very effective, back in the day, you thought, oh, that's he's a loogie. You bring him in for some lefties and lefties only, face one batter. That's not a big deal. But when you have to face 3 batters and you're not getting a lot of outs, that is what leads to this. That's what this indicates of him having so many outings and so few innings, is that he has been battered around so much that he's been not able to get outs, but he's still given up base runners and hits and walks and home runs, and he's been pulled from a lot of games because he has not been very effective. And that's one of the most consistent, relievers that's there. He has had a top 10 Cy Young finish. He has had MVP votes. He has been an All-Star 7 different times. He has won the Mariano Rivera American League Reliever of the Year award, and he has just not been good this year. Let's look at Edwin Diaz, who is another guy who's been fairly consistent, has also won the Mariano Rivera American League Reliever of the Year award, which is a whole mouthful to say. He's been a 2-time All-Star. This is only his second All-Star season. But he has had some pretty darn inconsistent inconsistencies. In 2018, he had his first All-Star appearance. He saved 57 games for the Seattle Mariners, then went to New York and had a terrible season with the Mets. He finished top 10 in Cy Young voting, got MVP votes in 2018. Then his 25-year-old season in 2019 with the Mets, a 5.59 ERA in 58 innings. He did still have that crazy strikeout number of 99 Ks in 59 innings, which is 15 Ks per nine. He's got 14.7 Ks per nine in his 7-year big league career. This year has a 1.52 ERA and 29 saves so far. 101 strikeouts in 53 and 1/3 innings. That is 17 strikeouts per nine. That's nearly 2 strikeouts per inning. That's bonkers numbers. Year before that, he had a 3.45 ERA. Year before that, he had a 1.75 ERA in just 19 games finished, 26 games total, 25 and 2/3 innings with the Mets. So with the Mets, he's been fairly consistent, but even still, his price is going to be astronomical. It is going to be very difficult, especially after getting that song and being such an integral part of this really, really good Mets team. I don't see them letting him go. Now you want to look at Kenley Jansen, who is another guy who has been fairly consistent. He's going to be 35 years old next year, just like Aroldis Chapman is going to be. He's got a 3.62 ERA for the Braves this year. He has got 31 saves, 49 and 2/3 innings this year, 65 strikeouts. He has been very, very consistent, even has a top 5 Cy Young finish back in 2017 when he was in the middle of his 3 different all-star selections. He's going to be a bit older. He's still fairly reliant on that cutter, still very consistent, was pretty much the only good reliever in the Dodgers bullpen for so many years, and it's wild to think they let him go. Still very confused about that. But then you want to look at, okay, well, we've got another guy. We got another guy who's all these guys are going to be 35. All these guys are the same age. Craig Kimbrel, who is also going to be 35 next year, did have an all-star season in 2021. You think, okay, well, he was fantastic with the Cubs there, right? A little bit. For the most part, he was fairly inconsistent. He also has a Rookie of the Year finish. He has several different top 10 Cy Young finishes, an 8-time All-Star. He's a Rolaids reliever of the year, as the Hoffman NL reliever of the year, Mariano Rivera AL reliever of the year. This year he has been on the Dodgers, and he has not been that great. He has been fairly inconsistent. A 4.14 ERA in 48 games, 45 and 2/3 innings. So again, he has also got that fewer innings than outings, which is another sign that he has been able to be pulled a lot more frequently than you would like from a guy who's supposed to be your lockdown closer. He did really well in the first half of the season with the Cubs, 39 games, a .49 ERA. Then he got traded to the South Side, and he had a 5.09 ERA in 24 games there. Now, part of that was because he was not, I think it was part of it was because he's not the primary closer there. I think Liam Hendricks was at the time. But for the season before with the Cubs, he had been bad as well. He had a 6.53 ERA in 2019 that was 20 and 2/3 innings of 23 outings. In 2020, he had a 5.28 ERA in 18 outings, 15 and a third innings. That's not super great. Before that, he was pretty darn consistent with Boston, with the Padres for a year, with the Braves for so many years. But he has been really, really up and down, and mostly down for the last couple of years. And then there's one other guy, Zack Britton, who is going to be 34 next year. He's not going to be 35. Of these guys, he's the only one who is not that exact same age. He's only a 2-time All-Star, which is kind of insane for how effective he has been. He had that one incredible year with Baltimore that there was a big, big controversy about them not using him in a playoff game when they absolutely should have, and losing. He got a 11th place finish in Cy Young voting, or in MVP voting that year. 4th place in Cy Young voting, had a .45 ERA back in 2016. This year has not been very effective for the Yankees, but for the 2 seasons before, he was very, very consistent with New York. 66 games in 2019, a 191 ERA, 20 games in 2020, a 189 ERA, and this year, I don't really know how they've been so effective with these two. I mean, I do know they've been 2 random guys that have just popped up and been fantastic relievers for him because, of course, the Yankees really need a break, you know. You got to feel bad for those downtrodden Yankees. But no, this year he's been lit up. 18 and a third innings, 22 outings, 5.89 ERA. The strikeouts have been fewer than 9 per 9 innings. The walks have been at 6.9 per 9 innings, which would be nice if it wasn't very much not nice. So these are the big time consistent relievers. If you're wanting one of those guys, each one of these guys are going to be so expensive. The ones that have actually been good as of late, I think you might end up seeing $20 million for Edwin Diaz. You might see a decent number thrown at Kenley Jansen, because even though he has been lit up a few times, he has still been able to get those saves. He is still at this point, to my knowledge, the Braves closer, and he has been able to get it done in the postseason consistently. But Zack Britton, Craig Kimbrel, some of those other guys, the other ones that you think, okay, well, they've got, you need to have somebody with the experience. Those guys are incredibly hard to find. Even the best ones still, like we just saw, have had some really, really up and down seasons. So the best bet is just kind of hope on your homegrown guys. We've seen some consistency from Jose Leclerc when he's been healthy. We have seen Jonathan Hernandez mostly be good. Granted, it is a smaller sample size, but I think the raw stuff should give you a little bit of confidence there. And, you know, that is 100% why I thought the decision to not trade Matt Moore was pretty much inexcusable, no matter what you're going to get in relief or in return there for that relief guy. Well, That was a lot more long-winded than I meant it to be, but, that's all right. It's a Friday episode. Get you 30 minutes. Still got 3 games to go in Boston, and we'll see how those games go. We have sorry to ruin your weekend, but we have a Dallas Keuchel game tonight, a TBD start on Saturday, and I believe it is a Dane Dunning outing on the road. We'll see if he can break that long winless streak on the road with no decisions. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks again for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season, the local team experts, and the Locked On podcast of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you find your podcasts. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.